Welcome to the Fast Leader Podcast, where we explore convenient yet effective shortcuts that will help you get ahead and move forward faster by becoming a better leader. And now, here's your host, customer and employee engagement expert, and certified emotional intelligence practitioner, Jim Rimbach.
Okay, Fast Leader Legion, you absolutely want to make sure that you go to iTunes and download and subscribe to Fast Leader Show, because you're going to want to rate this particular episode with the guest that I have for you today, because he's fantastic. Pele Ugboajah, who's a PhD that was born and raised in a war-torn African village during the Biafra Civil War. With nothing but the clothes on his back and a head full of passion, he overcame numerous obstacles and completed a journey from the third world poverty that he was born to the United States, where he actually took advantage of his opportunities and now holds an MBA and a PhD in organization and management with a specialization in leadership behavior. As a former vice president of human resources, he managed and monitored HR budgets of several $1 million. He's an avid software innovator, storyteller, and musician, and has worked for many years in various executive and entrepreneurial roles. Today, he is a software entrepreneur and has developed and delivered a solution called ResultPal, which is a practice-based performance management solution that helps organizations turn talent into results. His mission is to convince the world that individual, team, and organizational success comes from the willingness and ability to change and improve behavior one person at a time. Pele lives in Austin, Texas, with his wife and 3 kids, Iji, Obi, and Ike. Pele Ugboajah, are you ready to help us get over the hump?
I am ready. Thank you so much.
Oh, you're more than welcome, and we're excited to have you. Okay, so I've given our listeners an opportunity to learn a little bit about you, but we want to know what your passion is. Could you share with us a little bit what's driving you today?
Well, what's driving me today is the desire to help change the world through behavior. I'm really passionate about the topic of behavior because nothing really succeeds or fails unless behavior happens. So if we can help people change their behavior for the better, we can actually impact the world.
You know, there's so much depth in what you're just saying in association with behavior and behavior change, behavior modification. You know, and I was reading something recently that talked about changing behavior is the most difficult thing that we could ever do. So how does that come into play when you start talking about helping people do just that, change behavior?
Well, you're right. It is difficult to change. And the reason why changing behavior is so difficult is because behavior is, get this, invisible. It actually is happening all the time, and yet we just aren't aware of it. We don't stop to say, wait a second, I am behaving this way, or I am behaving that way. And to make matters worse, when you add my behavior to your behavior and to the behavior of a lot of people that share our community, that's when you get culture. And so when a lot of us are behaving badly, we end up with a company called Enron, where you got talented people and you have bad behavior. And it causes potentially, that could have caused a global catastrophe of finance and failure. And so behavior, my behavior, your behavior, if we can just change it by focusing on it and making it less invisible, that's when we create the success in our lives.
Oh, well, when you talk about that, there's one thing that really came to mind when you mentioned Enron and the behavior piece, and that, there's, something in social society that talks about, or social science that talks about, when you think about mob mentality and mob behavior, that an IQ will drop by more than 50%, and you start doing things because of the mob mentality that you otherwise didn't do. So, yeah. When you start talking about Enron, so you're saying some of that mob behavior was in place and people's IQ just dropped all over the place?
Absolutely. And the interesting thing is when you look at leaders or really anyone in work or in life, we are always exercising certain skills. And these skills are what allow us to be successful. But behind these skills, in order to get good at any of those skills, are these little sub-skills or actionable behaviors that we've got to get good at. It's like if you were going to learn how to play the guitar, first you got to know how to hold it. That's a behavior. Then you got to know another behavior and another behavior. And so really changing behavior in order to avoid this problem of culture we've talked about at the Enron level, changing behavior comes down to getting really down to the small, tiny chunks of behavior. Once we get down to those tiny chunks, we can change them one tiny chunk at a time until we end up with a person who's become a better leader, and so on and so forth. So it's really fascinating stuff when you get down to the science of behavior change.
Yeah, and talk about fascinating. For us at the Fast Leader Show, we really like to focus in on things that inspire us in a lot of different ways. And quotes, passages, and things like that are something that I think we all find energy and power in, and then have different interpretations and cause different behaviors. But is there a particular quote or leadership passage that kind of drives you to helps you be the person that you want to be?
Absolutely. It's 3 words. Leadership is influence. If you're not influencing anyone, if no one's following you or your ideas, you're not a leader. If you're in a company and your title is vice president and no one does what you say, no one agrees with you, and no one is influenced by you, you're not really a leader. And so I think for me, the greatest 3 words about leadership are that leadership is actually influence.
Definitely for me, I've had the opportunity to go through some workshops and certification classes that help with that influence and persuasion piece. And for me, it's made a world of difference in a lot of different ways, both personally and professionally. And I talk about it a lot as being an expert for the Customer Experience Professionals Association, in how that persuasion and influence, if you want to, is important if you want to create a more really human-centric organization. In context, we're talking about customer-centric, but it's a critical, and core component that we all can get some significant benefit from if we improved our skills in that area. But I would say that for you, talking about your history and really where you are today, there had to be a lot of humps that you had to get over in order for you to be where you are today, and have a family that I know you cherish a lot, and I'm sure cherishes you. Can you share a story with us about a time where you've had to get over the hump so that it will help us?
Well, I actually do have a story that has never really left me. It's something that I always measure my life against. I was a younger man in a corporation. I had a fancy title. I was director of technical marketing at this company. And I got there not because I was a great leader, but because I had a boss who just promoted me. And, he's actually the boss who once told me that leadership is influence, by the way. But one day, out of fear or out of just not knowing the terrain of the corporate world, I was afraid to be in that company. And I resigned to accept a position at a larger company. So I basically left the company that had, nurtured me and went and started somewhere new because I had a bigger title, more money, and so on. Well, after a year, the bigger company that brought me on laid almost everybody off. And so I had nothing. I had climbed the corporate ladder. I had achieved a whole bunch of things, and now I had absolutely nothing. And so I went back to that boss of mine and I asked him, I said, I know you're not going to have me back. I probably, the way I resigned probably hurt you a little bit. Tell me what I can do to improve. And he said, look, you got 3 problems, and I'll never forget them. He said, you struggle with loyalty. Well, yeah, duh. You struggle with patience. Again, duh. And you struggle with teamwork. And he said, if you could have just done those 3 things very well, you would still be here and you'd be whatever, he thought I could have potentially been. And I thanked him for his help. But you know what? I really wish he would have told me that before I left the very first time. And that's the problem with leadership, is we don't actually develop and nurture people on a one-to-one level anymore. He could have easily sat me down and had that conversation, and I would have stayed. I wouldn't have been lost in my fears. But he didn't do that. And so now I'm passionate and committed to providing tools and technologies that will help people identify the behaviors they need to change and improve on so that they can actually be successful where they are. So that's the hump I had to get over.
Well, and those are common ones, but your story is the unique one. And thank you for sharing that with us. Now, if you were to talk about, something that kind of hits you as that opportunity to do something different within that story, and even what he shared with you, can you remember when that actually really hit? Was it at the moment he told you, or did it come later?
It came many years later when I realized that what he was trying to do was identify behaviors. Okay. But he didn't identify those behaviors and he didn't coach me. He just sort of allowed me to go do whatever I wanted to do. And we've got to help people understand where they are, what they need to develop. And then we've got to coach them and keep them accountable to those behaviors so that they can get better over time. I think that if we can help others to be successful where they are, it in the end creates a better, corporation or world or family or whatever. And so that's really what my mission is now, if you will.
So if you were going to give our Fast Leader Legion a piece of advice or two, what would it be?
Well, I think, first of all, I hate to say this, but I would say, go ask your boss, what are the 3 things I need to change? And are you willing to help me change them right now? Because if you're not having that conversation, you'll never really know what's going on. You've got to recognize that everything you do creates a culture of success or failure. And some of us are lucky to hear about it sooner than later. And if you're waiting for an end of year review, performance review, forget it, because everybody hates those things. They don't work. You need to go and understand in real time what you need to do to become a better leader, a friend, or whatever it is you need to succeed at the level of behaviors, not just at a theoretical level, at a really tangible, here's what you got to do first, here's what you got to do next in terms of the leadership behaviors in your life.
Well, that's very helpful, but I can give you a scenario and would love to hear your thoughts on this because I know somebody personally, and I'm going to protect their name,
Sure.
who has not had a leader who will actually sit down and spend the time with them to do just that. And if they were to go and ask them, they may not get any reply or answer and probably would just get some avoidance or, something off the cuff that's not really genuine and sincere. What if you don't have that person that you can go to and ask those questions? What do you do?
Well, the interesting thing is that's why I developed my current product, which you mentioned, which is called Result Pal, because it helps to extend the activities of a coach, even when the coach is not there or when the manager is not there. And so if this individual can't talk to their manager, I would highly recommend that they get a coach. And when that coach is not physically available, they should be tracking their behaviors in a tool like Result Pal. Because if you don't have that kind of visibility and accountability for your coach regarding the behaviors you're implementing, you're not really going to do them quite as well, to be quite honest. It's like playing a musical instrument. We need coaches because coaches help us get better.
You bring up a really important thing for me in regards to when I had a large staff that I was managing, and I think it's typical that I would have, a pretty consistent amount of folks that would say, "What are you going to do to develop me?" Right?
Yeah.
And I would always have to throw it back and said, well, how are you going to develop yourself? I mean, there's really 2 pieces to this pie here. Part of it is, okay, here's are the things that we sponsor or that we support as an organization. And then here's things that you have to do outside of that. And that's what makes a holistic, type of approach and benefit in regards to success when it comes to coaching and your development. So it's not just, you. It's also, a me from the perspective of, I have to do something on my own as well and kind of be proactive with that. So when you refer to coaching, a lot of organizations don't offer coaching. Would you recommend that somebody, does not allow that to stop them from being coached and go out and find their own coach?
I really would, especially leaders, emerging leaders. You owe it to yourself to find a coach. Look, Michael Jordan, okay, Pele of Brazil. These are some of the best performers in their field, and they all had coaches. There's a lot of value to a coach, but the thing about coaching is that, you're very correct. It's very well supported. There's research that shows that the best success comes not necessarily from a great coach, but from a great coachee. It is the willingness of an individual to implement the behaviors that are recommended by a coach. That's what makes the difference. And so when you're implementing these behaviors, even in the absence of the coach, and you track your results and you can show what you're doing, you really get success out of that. So yes, I would suggest that anyone, whether or not their manager is actively involved, seek out a mentor, seek out a coach, seek out someone, and then, create an environment where you can interact with them. Even if they're not going to be with you 100% of the time, at least there's a soft accountability because someone cares and someone's watching.
Yeah, those are all great pieces of insight and information. And hopefully many of the folks who've been on the fence, who are our listeners, will take that final leap. And if they're not being provided a coach, they go get one. All right. So you talked a little bit about Result Pal and, that tool and the mechanism and how you're focusing on that now. What really excites you about where you are with the development of that solution?
What excites me is I think I'm on the bleeding edge of something here because there's no industry yet. There's no product yet for what I'm doing. There is no such thing as a BMS, a behavior management system. It doesn't exist in the corporate or in the leadership or business world. We have learning management systems. We've got contact and CRM systems. Who's managing behavior? Nobody. So Result Pal really wants to create a world in which we can define behaviors, we can manage them, and actually use this tool to help people get better at me, as you said.
Okay, so I have been in a contact center space for many years and have seen a lot of different technologies come and go. And I had an analyst tell me one time, you should never try to create an industry that does not exist. It takes too much money. So how are you doing that?
Well, luckily for me, the industry of behavior has been here since the very first person came out of wherever we came out from, right? So behavior is something we've been trying to manage through religion, through politics, through all kinds of mechanisms. There's nothing new about behavior modification or behavior change. But what we now have is we have technologies like mobile devices, wearable technology, voice activation and listening systems. And when all these technologies come together, you now have the ability to reproduce a coach when no coach is there. And so that's really what's exciting. So it's not an industry that's being created. It's really a way of doing what we've always done through technology.
Got it. Thanks for the clarification. Well, we wish you the very best, Pele. Here we go, Fast Leader listeners. It's time for the Hump Day Hoedown. Okay, Pele, the Hump Day Hoedown is the part of our show where you give us good insights fast. So I'm going to ask you several questions, and your job is to give us robust yet rapid responses that are going to help us move onward and upward faster. Pele, Are you ready to hoe down?
I'm ready.
All right. So what do you think is holding you back from being a better leader today?
Now, is that me or anyone?
You.
Oh, me. Okay. I need more people on my team. That's what's holding me back. When you're in a startup environment and you're a bootstrapper, the biggest gift you can get is finding good people to join your team. And I'm actively looking for those people. When we increase our strength by numbers, we will be a much more effective team, and I'll be a better leader as a result.
Got it. What's the best leadership advice you have ever received?
Influence, which is what I started out with in our conversation, comes from helping others. It doesn't come from demanding it. Leadership is influence, but you gain that when you help other people. It's amazing how that works, but that's the magic formula, I think.
What is one of your secrets that you believe contributes to your success?
I play guitar. I play the piano. I write songs. I play soccer with my kids. You got to play something. You got to get out of this hard work environment. And there's a spiritual place you go to, for me anyway, when I'm playing either with my kids or with my musical instrument. You can't pay for it. It's magic. So if you can go there for a while and just get away, get lost in playing, when you come back to work, you become so much more powerful.
What do you feel is one of your best resources that helps you lead in business or life?
Google. I know this is a plug for a software company, but I got to tell you, after I got my PhD and I spent all that money trying to get an education, I realized I got more education by searching for stuff on Google. So I have to say, when we walk around this earth and at any point in time we can find knowledge with a click of a button, my goodness, that's a resource.
That's for sure. Now I know there's probably several, but if you could recommend one book that our listeners should read.
Oh boy, there are so many. I would say, my goodness, I'm trying to come up with something smart here, but I don't think I'm thinking of one. I would stick with the 7 habits. I always come back to that. Stephen Covey was just, he meant a lot to me. I met him once, and he's one of those people that can inspire tears. So if you could read that book again from the perspective of, this book is going to be around for years. It's going to mean something to people for years. It'll do something for you. It's a good book.
Oh, that definitely gives us a renewed vision into that particular book. All right, so we're going to actually put the link to that book and other bonus information from today's show, and you'll be able to find that by going to fastleader.net/Pele Ugboajah. Just go to fastleader.net. It'll be a lot easier, and you'll be able to find it. All right, Pele, this is my last Hump Day Hoedown question. Imagine you woke up tomorrow morning and you were 25 years old again, and you were supposed to begin a new job as a manager of a team of people that is underperforming and disengaged, but you have retained all of the wisdom and skill that you currently have. Your task is to turn the team around. You get up, you get ready, you head out to work. What do you do now?
Oh boy. I think the first thing I'll do is I'll call them and I'll have all of them give a speech. And now what I mean by that is, I'm not going to be the speaker. I'm not going to motivate. I want you to motivate the rest of us regarding how you are going to be great at your job and how you're going to help us all succeed so much. See, there's something that magical that happens when you give other people the platform, when you're not taking it for yourself. All of a sudden, they become the implementers of behaviors. And I think that's why, I'm so passionate about creating a software tool like Result Pal that helps people implement behaviors. Because when they're the ones driving, they're the ones succeeding. So yes, I'd get them all, put them on a soapbox and say, we're here to listen.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, it was an honor to spend time with you today. Please share with the Fast Leader listeners how they can connect with you.
Well, you could go to www.resultpal.com. And I think that's the best place to start. Otherwise, I'm also on LinkedIn, and I believe you're going to provide that link.
I absolutely will. It'll be on our show notes page. Pele, thank you for sharing your knowledge and wisdom. The Fast Leader Legion honors you and thanks you for helping us get over the hump. Thank you for joining me on the Fast Leader Show today. For recaps, links from every show, special offers, and access to download and subscribe, if you haven't already, head on over to fastleader.net so we can help you move onward and upward faster.